Okay, thank you very much. I'm not as weary as Sean Gross, who just flew in this morning from DC. So I don't really have that excuse. I hope that I'm cogent today and say something intelligent that's useful. Of course, a lot of what I'll be saying is respective to several instances, respective to specific locations in the US. Nonetheless, I think that there's some interesting things that happened with these two pilots that make what happened relevant to what could happen in the UK, even though we're 5 years behind you. It is rather stunning, you know. So just a little bit of a background. Let me fix this. The presentation is on pilots, 2 pilot programs. I'm actually starting the next pilots right now with an elementary school, a class of 6th graders, 50% of whom have mobile phones. It's kind of surprising. And also with a local charter school, and also with a local high school. So this is ongoing work, but what I'll talk about today is what happened last spring. My name is Richard Scullin, and I'm the founder of Mobile Ed. First and foremost, I'm a teacher. I did my practicum for my MA, Master of Arts in English, and also my MAT, which is a Master of Arts in Teaching, a senior degree, not a PhD, but a senior degree if you're not familiar with that. I did my practicum in student teaching in a large city high school, which was an interesting experience. And then I also taught at a private day school in Denver, Colorado, and I taught at a boarding school as a day faculty member in Northville, Mount Hermon in Massachusetts. I also taught at a summer school for kids with learning differences. In any case, that's my background, but I also, in 2000, I heard that people were selling their stock options. Like a guy who was just sweeping the floor over in Seattle was selling his stock options for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then he could retire and just enjoy his life. So I decided to move into the venture capital industry and did some marketing with them, with a company called Village Ventures, who was building a network of early stage venture funds. I did that for 7 years, but I've always been continued my interest in mobile learning and in learning overall. I wrote my first paper on the internet and literacy in 1994, to put it in perspective. So I'm going to talk a little bit about mobile ed. I'm going to talk about the pilots and some broader reflections. First, I have to set a little bit of a context. I know that I'm preaching to the choir, but I think it's useful for us to start at least with some common, or at least some touchstones. Okay? I'll blow through these really quickly because I know that a lot of you are very familiar with this. Of course, there are roughly 4 billion cell phone subscribers globally right now. I think that this number is obviously higher. It's not exponential, but it's definitely increasing radically. As mobile active, Katrien Verklaas tweeted 2 weeks ago in Amsterdam at Picnic, the growth is and will become more dramatic in the developing worlds, and I think you already know that as well. In the US, to address these new markets, especially in the developing worlds, academics like Jonathan Rothberg and Sandy Pentland out of MIT have created initiatives such as Next Billion and Next Lab, and they're building services with students, developing apps on, say, Android to create new applications for these emerging markets. Of course, technology, too, is rising to meet this wave of demand. Padmasree Warrior, who's the CTO of Motorola for a number of years and now has moved on to Cisco. Padmasree notes that the mobile will soon be synonymous with the internet. 4G capabilities will radically enhance collaboration and communication, and advances in mobile devices will enhance connectivity, networking, and most notably learning. I think this is kind of fairly straightforward, but at the same time, I think for what I am doing as far as connectivity and 4G capabilities, even though that's not available globally, I think that that prospect on the horizon is something that we need to pay attention to. Also, Cisco notes that the recent mobile forecast predicts mobile data traffic globally will double every year, increasing 66 times between 2008 and 2013. Again, reinforcing that connectivity, that ability to cooperate, as this presentation is about the cloud and cooperation and collaboration. I think those convergences of video and 4G capabilities are notable. Of course, academics and thinkers like B.J. Fogg at Stanford are also addressing these new developments. B.J. Fogg writes, "Around the world, we've changed the course of human evolution by adopting mobile phones quickly, passionately, and universally. For the rest of our lives, virtually everyone we know will carry a mobile phone and will use it throughout the day and night. A human appendage." More specifically to the U.S., and you might find this notable for its research, in the U.S. more specifically drew the picture that the Internet Project first surveyed teenagers about their mobile phones in 2004, when a survey showed that 45% of the teens had a cell phone. Since then, mobile phone use has climbed steadily among teens to 63% in 2006 and 71% in 2008. So to Andy's point, it's a rapidly and radically growing market. In fact, it's growing so fast, I think that there's some profound questions about how do you deal with that flow of energy and interest. The Pew Wireless Internet Use also in July 2009 writes that this summer, African Americans are the most active users of the mobile internet, and their use of it also is growing fastest. This means that the digital divide between African Americans and white Americans diminishes when mobile use is taken into account. End quote. So the mobile device could help hard-to-reach populations, which I find especially intriguing as far as U.S. education and perhaps UK. I met with Rich Miner recently, and he was at Xconomy's Future of Mobile Applications. He's the co-founder of Android. And he noted that mobile devices as the primary information source for populations. It will be the only place for information. So from my perspective, again, consider then what these new forms of learning will emerge, or how they will emerge, for this group who has access to the world primarily or solely through the mobile device. And finally, actually, this is someone that Sean knows well. Carly Schuler spoke at his event this last February in DC, and I think that her work is definitely worth your investigating. She generated a body of research called Pockets of Potential, and really kind of really well done, say 40 to 50 page document that can succinctly provides information, a glimpse, a snapshot of the U.S. mobile market and how education perceives that market. I like this, and I don't usually read the slides, but our national debate must shift from whether to use the devices to support learning to understanding how and when they will best be used. Also, I just want to add that Schuler's extensive research advocates for the use of mobile technologies to promote children's learning, to create a digital teacher corps, which I think is especially notable in the U.S., and develop new theories and models for leveraging mobile technologies in learning. I'm interested in that area too. So there's the pragmatics of a digital teacher corps. In other words, taking a population, a demographic of teachers who probably don't have the skills or maybe even scared of using the digital device and training them. I think that's really important, but also the models for leveraging mobile technologies in learning. I think there's a lot of theory out there. There's a lot of pedagogy and pedagogical theory, but could new theories, new thinkings, new approaches to how learning occurs, could that happen with the mobile device? How do we effectively harness the power of the mobile phone for learning? Mobile Ed wanted to support teachers and excite learners, and in this instance, we had a group of students that had already adopted the technology. The technology was not, however, embraced by the schools where learning was supposedly occurring. Tech adoption had preceded institutional demand. We also wanted to ensure that the educational goals, the process, the student interest aligned and were fueling and guiding the endeavor. Toward this goal, Mobile Ed created 2 pilot programs in the spring of 2009, exploring mobile learning in the U.S. So we know that mobiles will give access to vast amounts of information, But in the context of learning, what is more critical, I think, and often one of the most important factors is authorship, content creation, and collaboration or cooperation toward a common goal within the context of a meaningful community. In designing the pilots, we knew that we had to create something that would address that, or at least pedagogically what we valued. In designing the pilots, we knew that the students in the U.S. schools often had to power down the mobile device in classrooms. They're often banned the minute you cross the boundary of the school grounds. But that turning off is also a preventing of access to these collaborative spaces, and denying access to the device has immense computing power. So it's obviously a missed opportunity. I think we know that. So what does the mobile device bring to learning? I thought about these mobile buzzwords: ubiquity, pervasiveness, anywhere, anytime, portability, mobility, connectivity. I mean, we've all heard these, and I think that they've become cliches. I think that we need to perhaps put it in the context of another context in order to make these words have meaning. So we want to take those words and we want to do more than just data sharing. And one of the solutions is possibly the cloud. The cloud is a rather complex term, but if you think about programs or storage running out in the internet, I think that that's probably the most simplistic way of describing it. The cloud has multiple ends, and it allows numerous learners to collaborate and cooperate in myriad ways, and then also to produce something as a result of that. So there are lots of ins, and there are lots of outs, multiple ins and outs. The cloud has RSS feeds, Facebook, iTunes, Twitter, you name it. So MobileEd's thinking about the pilots was also to find low-cost, easy ways to address the missed opportunity, the computing power that the kids already had in their hands. At a fundamental level, we wanted to show that mobiles could be used more effectively to support core curriculum. In other words, the public school goals that are prescribed by the state or by the federal government. Beyond the mobile device, though, we needed a way for students with simple cell phones and limited carrier plans to quickly interact with and use the mobile device. We needed something free, easy to use, and device agnostic. Not easy to do. I mean, you've got some kids with iPhones, and then you have other kids with a simple, very, very simple phone that can only text. So how do you design a mobile lesson around that? Our requirements were simple, yet not. The use of a blended learning approach, classroom instruction, and field use of mobiles, and a web-based cloud platform where students could gather and generate content. We were most attracted to something that offered easy collaboration and spontaneous contribution. Of course, we also needed a minimal setup and training. Drop.io, which is a company in, I believe it's in Brooklyn or Manhattan, helped address this need. In other words, the different requirements that I just enumerated in the last several slides. Drop.io is a cloud computing and storage service. It's simple, real-time sharing, collaboration, and presentation technology. You can use Drop.io to privately share files and collaborate in real time by web, email, phone, mobile device, MMS, SMS, etc. You can create a drop in 2 clicks. You just go to their site, you click on the drop and you rename it, and then you're set to go. You can password protect it, so if there's students who need to get in there and you only want your class to have access, you can do that, or you can open it up to anyone who stumbles across it. You can share what you want, how you want, and with whom you want, and they offer 100 megabytes of storage for free. So for one simple lesson, I think it works fine. You can just open up a new one for a new lesson. It offers fully rich live media, a space where you can push content back and forth. It's ideal for team collaboration and live media streaming, real-time, on the fly, rich media collaboration. Regarding the mobile device use, students could post media. So for instance, they could send a photograph, they could send a recording, real-time from their phone in the field. One of the interesting areas that a lot of the teachers found thought-provoking is that Drop.io offers 100 megabytes, roughly about 450 minutes of free phone recording, and the MP3 is immediately created on the site. Kids could review a play or a film or an athletic event or something like that, a student performance, and then provide a review. Anyone with access to the phone could also provide audio input or feedback for the project. Timestamps allowed teachers to track the assignments, so someone met their deadline and fulfilled their criteria of the assignment and handed in their work in time. And the process was relatively seamless, free and easy to use. As I mentioned before, the kids could also have alerts, text alerts, iTunes, RSS feed, Facebook, Twitter, to enhance learning in social contexts. So Drop.io completes the picture, multiple ins, a place to share content, and multiple outs. And it's free and it's easy to use. So I achieved my goals. I can kind of describe what happened. Public or private, the teacher can control the access of data. They also have hidden access, so that if the kids don't want to share their paper or they don't want to share any of the content that they've decided to post online, they can, the teacher can set up a private access, so you could submit a piece of content, whatever that content was, a quiz, a review, a formal paper, or something like that. And as you'll see from the pilot presentation that I'm going to show you, they harvested tons of images and visuals as well as audio content from the field, really using the cell phone like a tricorder or something like that, creating content on the fly with a mobile phone. So the first pilot was done with Berkshire Arts and Technology Charter Public School. It's in Western Mass. Charter schools, are you familiar with what charter schools are? Kind of? So, I mean, you have public high schools in the United States. Of course, they're paid by taxpayers' money. And now you have charter schools, which is a growing movement to provide an alternative to the public school system. And again, taxpayer money is dedicated to the creation of the curriculum and everything else that happens in that school. But it's still controversial. And I think there's some that have become almost magnet schools for, quote, gifted students, and some charter schools have become places where they just kind of parse off other people that they don't know what to do with in the public school systems. In any case, this is BART. It's a Berkshire Arts and Technology Charter School. The school offers alternative to kids that may not be succeeding in mainstream public high school systems. The school, while it typically prohibits use of mobiles in class, was open to experimenting with technology to add value to their curriculum. Much of the student body is non-traditional. Many are the first students who would even consider going to college. So it's an old mill town, basically, in Adams, Mass. And the students who are kids, the sons and daughters of those mill workers. I worked with the teacher, Shannon Farley. The goal was to extend beyond the boundaries of the classroom to inspire inquiry learning in the world, to enable immediate mobile response, the ability to participate anytime, anywhere. The students were reading Hermann Hesse's Demian and then using the mobile device to discover images and narratives that resonated with the text. As I mentioned, we used Drop.io, a cloud computing file sharing device, and students could share and send images, text, voicemail directly, and they could respond to each other's work in numerous ways. The project goal was to broaden everyday learning, communication, collaboration, language skills. We wanted to expand learning outside of the classroom to their lives away from school. So instead of that parsed moment of 43 minutes within the confines of the actual physical structure that we call a classroom, we were we were trying to expand that notion of learning beyond the tangible, concrete boundaries, but also the whole linear boundary of 43 minutes. Some of the core themes of Demian, for instance, are birth and destruction. Student images and writing complement those ideas in the text. They recorded and wrote responses to each other's work, discourse. So in addition to content collection, they responded to peer work either through writing, audio recording, or imagery. Rachel, a girl who was working at the mall shoe store as a second job, actually, contributed media recordings and text during her break from work, with the mobile device, of course. And while not all students had an appropriate phone or data plan, when necessary, we collaborated on projects. They collaborated and shared equipment. You could pair up the kids and they'd share a phone, and then they'd both send data, content to Drop.io. Notably, BART has agreed they now plan to use mobiles as an ongoing component in their coursework and feeding more material, discussion, and discourse as a regular part of their inquiry. I've been meeting actually last week with the teachers and the IT directors to plan the first trimester's lessons. The core focus will be mapping to standards, in other words, the state standards that they must fulfill in order to be accredited school, and then also student-centered approaches built around projects and inquiry. In other words, getting the students to buy into the actual lessons that are created instead of forcing something down their throats. We found that the student and faculty response was positive to the use of mobiles in coursework. We also acknowledged that one ongoing challenge will be to ensure the rigor of student participation. Ease of use, for instance, does not ensure substantive use. How do we address that? I leave that kind of open as a rhetorical question, or not. The second program is with a liberal arts college. Mount Holyoke College is a private liberal arts school for women in, I think it's Hadley, Massachusetts. Small liberal arts college. The mobile pilot was with an advanced digital arts course in the studio arts program. Students at disparate locations culled images from their travels. Their assignment was to keep looking, to stay engaged with images, using the mobile phone spontaneous. With a cell phone camera in hand, familiar places like Grand Central Station in New York City are captured in surprising ways. That's the flag hanging from the ceiling of Grand Central. Students responded to each other remotely, but not simply just creating travel logs or snapshots. The goal to heighten awareness of elements of form, visual elements like line, shape, and color. Note the play of linear yellow, a discussion held in imagery. With a single click, images were sent from the camera phones to a common site, Drop.io. Peer review, writing, discourse, critique, analysis, and use of new vocabulary all became central to these projects. So beyond just taking the photograph and sending it to the site, you're collaborating real time. There's discourse, there's language, there's vocabulary. And you can see the screenshot there of what actually transpires. In the upper left, one student's image of transparency and reflection prompted others to investigate the same idea. And here, a triptych as exploration of texture, color, and abstraction. Again, student 5. Okay, thanks. And here, left-hand image was the prompt. Subsequent images were added to other students to create a visual essay about materials, consistency versus chaos, the man-made, the grid. With the mobile, they could respond and collaborate fast. As a blended approach, low-res mobile phone images were transformed using Photoshop. The mobile content became a sketchbook for content creation and collaboration. Lo-fi elements were embraced. While the art students weren't always satisfied with the image quality, they found a huge advantage in the immediate send, and rather than using cables and downloading. Of note, the commenting functionality helps students use appropriate use of terminology and practice the use of new vocabulary specific to the project. For the faculty members, she had a greater insight and access to student comprehension. Mobile Ed is working with several elementary schools. I told you about that, so I'm going to skip that over, but these are some of the projects we're working on right now. Some sample lessons using GPS on the smartphones that some of the students have for cartography, square the hypotenuse, teaching Pythagorean theory, and actually using triangulation out in the field. A history project interviewing, collecting narratives, MP3 and video with the veterans of foreign wars or other wars, and environmental studies, conducting census, flora, fauna, etc. I just wanted to just move over. I have about 3 minutes. On a broader plane, what we found intriguing here was the students' experience in the cloud touched on a number of key ideas. For teachers in learning, the device in hand had immense computing power, but online internet-based learning resources did not seem to embrace the flexibility of the mobility of the mobile. Our use of the cloud resources helped embrace and perpetuate the strengths of the mobile device, bringing together disparate items of content and ways to input and output and collaborate. We were also hoped in using the mobile device in the cloud that we could offer deeper extended engagement and broaden inquiry. One of the thinkers that continued to resonate throughout this experiment and inform the understanding of student collaboration in the cloud was Bakhtin, especially his concept of dialogism. We think of dialogism as opposed to monologism, a carrying on of continual dialogue. It does not merely answer, correct silence, or extend a previous work, but informs and is continually informed by a previous work. The cloud, via mobile devices, offers an opportunity for interplay of voices, references, and some form of heteroglossia. The cloud learning spaces become less monologic, and while the utterances of the individual are singular, they are quickly conflated, mashed up, responded to, edited, and morphed. The space in the cloud becomes dialogic space as a place of continual dialogue. So we start thinking not in a vacuum, but in a cloud. Language exists in response to what has been and what has been said, and in anticipation of what things will be said. I would add that there are many clouds, there are many forms of collaboration and of cooperating to achieve a variety of goals. Thank you very much for your time.
Probably got a couple of questions. Anybody? It's not on.
Sorry, I buzzed through that.
That's all right. How about that? Is that any better? Is that any better? Sure. I'll shout. I'll put my PE teacher voice on. How about that? Hi, Jeff. Nice to see you. Oh, it's working now. How about that? Okay.
Hi, Jeff.
Any questions anyway? One I think I'd like to pose, given that not a million miles away from here in Manchester, the Conservatives will probably be talking about how they can introduce charter schools into this country. So that might be an interesting topical issue, but let's stick to the technology first of all. Anybody got any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Just how did you come up with the projects in the first place? Was it collaboration with students, with other teachers? Was it your idea?
They were my ideas. I don't think they were my ideas because I knew that it was kind of a risky pitch just to get into the schools. And now I've kind of got a toehold in the schools, but the teachers are older, they're very risk averse, the administration is risk averse, so you really have to come with something like, here's an idea, I'll take care of everything for you, I'll come up with some ideas. That said, I just met the superintendent and a sixth grade teacher at an elementary school last week, and they're very excited, and they're just like, I have a gazillion ideas. You show me how I can put these things together. So something like that, I'm saying, really, I am not, very.
Most of the time.
Okay, can we say thank you to Richard for flying all the way over here and giving us a bit of an insight? Do the colleagues